I've recorded every single Mythic Plus key that I've attempted in Season 3, and in this series I'm going to cover the highs and lows of each dungeon on my way to pugging to the 0.1% title. In today's episode, we start off with a 23 Galakrons full, and in good old Vesperal TV fashion, we deplete this key. I don't think I've started a video this series where I haven't depleted the first key that we've done in the episode, but that is the pugging life. At the start here, wasn't really too sure what the tank was going to do pull-wise. I don't think he linked to root before, but he ends up pulling a lot of mobs at the start and then delays pulling into the second pull. So I popped my cooldowns on the first pull, my pets died. I was going through a phase here where my pets were dying all the time, so as a BM hunter, you're going to lose so much damage due to this. So he did get smoked by the Boomy on this first pull, otherwise we would have rolled him. But I definitely should have just been more aware about what the tank was doing, although it was a bit sus how he pulled. This was definitely not the Chamois day on this first boss, which is normally a bit of a training dummy for a boss. He did actually manage to fall over 3 times, which was quite impressive, I will say. We all have those keys. I mean, to be fair, he died and then anked and then instantly died again. Sometimes you can't avoid that, unfortunately. So it is what it is. And then he dies again straight after. So unlucky for him. But I mean, to be fair, he still was doing some respectable DPS. It just means that our battle reses were kind of wasted. Onto the Pug Killer boss then. I think this might be the biggest Pug Killer in this season. We have the Manifested Timeways. The Priest dies very early on in this pull to the Chrono Fade, like everybody seems to die. Guys, remember that if you have Chrono Fade, stay completely still when it gets dispelled from you, because then you don't take damage. This Priest was walking backwards as he dispelled himself, so he was already low from the other Chrono Fade going off, and then he just took himself out by walking backwards. He would have lived if he didn't move. We quickly reset this boss, ran it back. This time we had Bloodlust on pull. The Boomy got dispelled just on the edge of the slow and fast zone, so he actually ended up getting the slow zone once he got dispelled. So that went off, does a lot of damage to the group as we pass through it. I don't think I'm going to blame the Priest for this one. Like, the Boomy could have definitely positioned a little bit better. If he was more so in the middle, then this wouldn't have happened. The Priest probably saw him in there and then dispelled, and it just ticked round as he dispelled. But yeah, as you can see, I definitely panicked here. To live, I definitely could have lived here if I had pressed Turtle and just let it go on the spot, but I wanted to get back into the middle so that I didn't lose the debuff as I'm in the slow zone. But yeah, definitely just panicking here. I can see that big old ring slowly traveling towards me, about to take out all of my health while I've got my own debuff on me. But like I said, Turtle would have saved. So that is where the key finishes. That is a deplete right there. Then we jump into a 24 Darkheart Thicket. I've written in my notes here that, again, I did not realize that I was the Luster class, and I said, frick Blizzard, give us Lust baseline. So Blizzard, if you're listening to this, please just give Hunters Lust baseline, because having to lose a defensive, which I used on this first pull, is just so cringe. As a Hunter, I'm super squishy. I don't want to be dismissing my pets, resummoning pets mid-fight, and then resummoning again to get my defensive back after I've used Lust. It's just horrible. No excuse for me forgetting to use Lust on this first pull, as it was the first pull in the dungeon, so I could have just started with the Lust pet. But it's just so gimmicky. I really do hate it. Moving on to the first boss then, another infamous Pug Killer. Nobody was kiting through the boss with the ads here. For some reason, we were just trying to like fear them and CC them instead. That is not what you want to do on this fight. You want to get them and kite them into melee range of the boss so that we can cleave them down, because otherwise they are just going to fill the room with Nightfall and you're going to die later in the fight. As you can see here, the room is literally filled to the brim with Nightfall. It's just not looking ideal, so we do end up depleting this. With this one, I don't know if people are kiting away from the boss. I guess it's on me to then just hard swap to the ads, but then the boss is just going to take so long in those higher keys, and maybe you get away with it in a 24, but in like 26 and above, I don't know if that's going to mean you not timing the key overall, but at that key level, people would also know to kite through the boss. Back-to-back depletes then for the start of this episode. Feels good, man. Onto a good key then. We have a 24 Blackroot Hold. Always a nice key in this dungeon. On the first boss during the intermission, I tried to trap the ads here just so that we can keep one out and then phase the boss at 15% when it naturally phases, so you can get loads of free damage while the boss has downtime while he's waiting for that last ad to come in. But for some reason, for whatever reason, the ghosts are actually immune to frost traps, so that's interesting. I know that you can Druid root or Evoker root with Landslide, so yeah, I would have assumed, and I did assume here, that Freezing Trap was going to work, but it did not, so I let the guys know. Moving on to the second boss then, it is a Tyrannical week, so there's not too much to note about the trash. I was taking a lot of damage, it seemed, from the shoots in the upstairs room, but moving on to Elisana. Here, I literally ate every single Brutal Glaive. I'm pretty confident that it goes on the furthest player every time, so That's just a positioning error from me, but we were a basically triple melee comp with the Mistweaver fist weaving. So that's always going to be on me, and I need to stay out so that I can stay away so that it doesn't ricochet. I think you can also feign death this and then it goes on somebody else, but that's not something that I want to do in this situation because then it's going to go on a melee instead and it's going to cleave through all of them. Take out Ilisana with no problem. She's not really that hard of a boss. Move on to this corridor and we do a humongous pull here and we do some incredible damage. Hit 2 million easily. We had lust on that pull, so that was really nice as well. But yeah, we literally pulled the whole corridor. It was huge. Love to see that. And then we end the pull on 1.7 million. So that did wonders for the overall right there. On Smash Bite then, obviously you want to rotate out the people who get the hateful gaze. If it's on somebody twice, you're going to want to soak for someone. The Paladin kept baiting me here. I don't know if they were just slow on seeing when the gaze was going off, but last second they would run out of it, so I just was not prepared. And then it would run and almost one-shot me because I didn't have a defensive up. And then on to the last boss, on High Tyrannical Weeks, provided that the timer would be longer because it would be a higher key, you would lust P1 of this boss because the Shadow Bolts are pretty much going to one-shot you at this key level, so you really need to be aware of when those are going off and using defensives accordingly, but you want to rush through that phase with lust and all your cooldowns. But yeah, at this key level, we're at 24. We are smashing this key. This was a really nice group, to be fair. We didn't have lust back in time, so we're going to send that on the big Dantalian axe instead. And we did unfortunately miss about 1% on the enemy forces count here. So after we finished the last boss, we had to run back down the stairs and kill the 2 scavengers to finish it off. But we did still manage to 2-chest the key. Out of this key, we got 9 score, taking us up to 3,160 Mythic Plus rating. Next, we move on to a stream where we had some pretty big keys. This was a very, very successful stream. We start off with a 26 Waycrest mana here. On the Goliath boss, we got really fortunate with every single Thorns pretty much going on Seb Scalies. If you're running with an Augmentation Evoker, it's going to be very hard if it goes on one of the DPS because you're losing that third DPS. But if it goes on the Augmentation Evoker, then that's a big old W. And we got super fortunate here. I did die at the end, but it's kind of at that point where the DPS is just going to focus the main boss anyway, saves time and just gets him down instead. In the corridor, we did ninja pull. I can't remember if this was at the point in the season where Paladins were still doing this, but I know there's probably a few classes that can ninja pull through the walls here. So we did end up getting the Madden Survivalists from the lounge area come through. Didn't cause us any problems, but just something to note. This did mean that we obviously had more percentage going into the downstairs, so we ended up skipping the Matron, which maybe could be a time save. Obviously, the Matron has a lot more health than the Survivalist would, and they can just passively be cleaved down with the rest of the pack. To be honest, I'm not really sure why people don't take like some of the lounge area. I guess it's just where they are in the map, but they've got one kick and a few traps that go out. I'm pretty sure that is it as far as I'm aware, so they don't actually seem that scary. On to Lord and Lady Waycrest then. Because we had a Soul Charmer that was Mindsoothed in the back, I wanted to play on this side. Seb's positioning was a little bit sus here. I was kind of very blocked in for the Discordant Cadenza, so I did end up getting hit by one of those. Because as you can see, I'm very much in the corner. I'm running out to the right once it goes off, and Seb's already placing swirlies there. We could have sorted out the positioning a little bit better, but it's not the end of the world. And then we move on to the last boss. It was a little bit scuffed. I wasn't really aware that the best strat for me here was to be in melee so that obviously the Demon Hunter can just passively cleave on the ads as well. Eliminates a lot of downtime there. You want to use a defensive for every single Dread Essence because they really do hurt, and obviously make sure that the ads are dead before that goes off and then kill them with the fire. But we finished the key with about 3.5 minutes left, which is actually like pretty respectable in a 26. I can't lie, the Demon Hunter was doing some absurd damage in this key. Normally, I am quite ahead on DPS in terms of overall DPS at the end of the key, but this guy put me in my place, holy. So we did end up taking him into the next key, but for this key right here, we did end up getting 29 score out of this, so this was a big upgrade for your boy. Up to 3,189 Mythic Plus rating overall, closing in on that 3.2k mark. After this, we move in to the highest key I have ever done in this game. I was very, very happy with this one. I'm not going to go over it completely because, as you may have seen, this complete run is up on my YouTube. So if you guys want to go see that, I'll leave the link down in the description. But we did take the Demon Hunter and the tank from the last run into this key because they were very, very PogChamp. We did end up ninja pulling on the right side. Not really sure how we did this, but it looks like as the tank walked past, he did pull this middle pack here, so we had to take that one out. On the priestess fight, it was a little bit scuffed. We called for my trap late on one of the ads, so I panicked, turned around and ended up missing my trap. Luckily, we did recover and end up killing the ads with a knockback and some stuns. So I ended up trapping a later ad in the fight. We take out that boss with no problems. Then we move on to Yasma. On a 27 Tyrannical, this boss is terrifying. Holy. This boss ended up lasting about 5 minutes and 40 seconds. A very, very long fight. Here, I've learned my lesson. I'm going to use my defensives for the Soul Rend cast. I'm just going to let Racking Pain hit me, probably commit an Exhilaration to it, or a Feign Death, where I Feign Death here and it goes on Seb and he just gets one shot by it. Don't think he had any defensives up for that one. I'm pretty sure I even said sorry Seb as I Feign Death and saw that it really targeted him because I just knew that he was getting taken out by it. We do have 3 combat reses though, so we get him up, finish off the boss. Super chuffed. We're timing at 27 at this point in the season. I think this was 3 or 4 weeks into the season. I am slightly behind with where the keys are at for these episodes, but they will slowly catch up, so don't worry guys. As you can see, I cannot believe my eyes, hands on my head, but we did get 13 score out of this, taking us above the 3.2k mark up to 3,202. Didn't get as gapped by the Demon Hunter in this key as well. It's definitely a better key for the Demon Hunter than it is for a BM Hunter, so I'm pretty happy with only being around 30k behind. This was before the nerfs as well, I'm pretty sure. After this, we had a much needed break for a little bit. We then jumped ourselves into a 23 Galakrons full, which in theory should feel a lot easier than a 27 as Haldazar. Somehow that is not the case though. On the first boss, our healer did end up actually standing in the swirly on the first boss, so he ended up dying to that. I just don't think he registered that it was a swirly that he needed to move out from. It is unfortunate because I think no matter how well we played the rest of the fight, we probably would have died because the tank would have got one shot by the tank buster. He saves us anyway by not standing in the swirly. I mean, maybe he was just going for the wipe quicker, I'm not too sure, but we do end up wiping on Kronikar somehow. This boss is a literal training dummy, but it is what it is. So we run it back, kill Kronikar again. Pug killer, manifested time waves. It's your time again to kill this pug. My boy Drew, who I think is a viewer of the Twitch or the YouTube, I'm not sure. He whispered me after the key. I didn't actually realize at the time. But he unfortunately dies on the manifested time waves. Looks like he just gets clipped by the fragments of time. That makes him panic, and then he runs into some more orbs, unfortunately. At this point, I think after timing the 2 big keys that we needed full focus on for today and then having the hunter dead, Seb just didn't realize that he had the debuff and he was still stood in the decaying time zone. So we get the slow dispel instead. That kills Hardbite, kills Seb as well, and that is the key donezo. GG's, unlucky. We go again, straight back into another 23 Galakrons full. We ended up adopting the high key strat of invising past the first pack and then pulling the second pack onto the boss. Big fan of this. Can get very sketchy depending on the affixes, like if you got bolstering and then you bolster the rippers, they're going to one-shot you when they time rip. Took out the first boss, no problems. Moved on to my favorite ever boss in World of Warcraft. Again, we meet the manifested time waves. That's definitely not going to be the title and thumbnail of this video, is it? Here, I tried to follow the strat that everybody does, where they kind of run in behind the orbs going right or anti-clockwise. But then I just didn't like it. I have since learned that strat and it is actually fine. But as a BM Hunter, I'm probably one of the only specs in the game that can just permanently run clockwise when the fragments of time are running out. And I can just dodge every single one. I personally really like that. It does make it a bit awkward to get orc buffs and also heal sometimes. But I'm not going to be taking any damage anyway, so... Killed the manifested time waves, easy boss. Don't know how he seems to deplete all my keys, but he does. We skip the dragon after we take the portal, just stack up here and run at the same time towards the right and you'll be able to skip him. Blight of Galakron was super easy as well. The first orb that went out, I Feign Death here, which completely negates that mechanic. So guys, if you are a rogue with Vanish, or if you're Night Elf with Shadow Meld, Hunter with Feign Death, Mage with Invis, there's probably more. But if you Feign Death or use those abilities when you get targeted by the Corrosive Orb, it will just completely cancel that mechanic. It eliminates so much damage and stress from this fight, so please do that in your pugs or groups. On Iridicron, I died to Earth Surge like a complete bot. I just stood in one of the upheavals. I just don't think I anticipated how quick it was, but yeah, that is completely on me. I should not be dying like that, so I munched our last combat res. Doesn't matter though, we still got the boss down. I didn't really have any cooldowns for the Cataclysmic Obliteration phase. In higher keys, this is going to be a problem because I'm still not 100% aware of where I have to pop my cooldowns, because need them to break the Earth Surge shields, need them to actually just like kill the boss flat out and get his HP down to time the key, and then you also need cooldowns for this last phase In a higher key, we would definitely have Lust back for this last phase, but yeah, it can get a little bit sketch with how close it gets on the timer sometimes. 14 score out of this, so considering it's only a 23, that is quite a lot of score. It takes us up to 3,216. Huge gains coming out of this video. Still on the same week, we have a tyrannical 25 Everbloom here. In this group, the tank and the healer were weird from the start, honestly. As we formed this group, I had the Mistweaver already invited, and he flamed me for inviting a rogue because of no combat res, and then also I invited a demon hunter. The thing is, there's a demon hunter and also the evoker in this group both had CR braces, so we had the combat reses there, but he just got all arsey about that, so I got weird vibes from him from the start. The key went very smoothly up until the Archmage Soul, which is interesting because the council didn't really cause us any problems. Would you believe it? But yeah, we get on to Archmage Soul. The Mistweaver died twice here. It's normally the people that start flaming or being weird at the start that end up being the cause and problem in your key. But yeah, he died. He flamed Seb for rescuing him, which makes completely no difference to him at all. It's not going to stop his cast. It's not going to, like, it changes his positioning, but like he should be able to react to that, especially with the way that he was talking throughout this key. Like, you could just tell this man had, or woman had, a big old ego. We then managed to get him back up. He has no mana towards the end of the fight, and then he does die to another Cinderbolt Storm. Like, normally I would not flame people. Like, this is a hard boss on Tyrannical, do not get me wrong. So, like, props to him. He was a good player, and people die. It's like, it is what it is. But when they've had a weird attitude for the whole key, like, it just seems very hypocritical, and you know that if anybody else died, he would be the first person to flame them for it. So, yeah. We get him back up again, but that causes the tank to then fall over because he had to spend some holy power on rezzing him. We were so close to killing it. The boss was on 5%, and we had around probably 7 minutes for the last boss, which we probably would have needed. But this key was definitely timeable. It was a really solid group. I just didn't like the attitude of the healer mainly. I can't remember. I've got here written in my notes that the tank was also a bit weird as well. But yeah, this group fell apart. We run it straight back on a 24 Everbloom as it was my key. Again, super smooth on both of these 25 and 24 keys on the council boss. If you guys are interested, we did focus down Telu on the right side, kept the left guy kicked when he was active, but yeah, just nuke down the right side first. I think that's always the play at the moment. On the Archmage, I'm always baiting the orb as a BM hunter. I just stay out at max range for pretty much the whole fight. It does make augmentation life a little bit harder to buff me, but it just makes it easier for me. I can sustain myself for each of the Cinderbolt Storms pretty much. And then we move on to the last boss. It has a lot of health and does a lot of damage, especially while the ad is up. So you want to be saving damage for the ad especially. And also this is where you want to pop your defensives, particularly on the overlap of when the boss does the colossal blow. That is where you want to use your big defensives, use your Zephyrs, use your group utility to help out the rest of your group. BM's really nice on this fight as well. I can deal with a lot of the lashes on the ground just by running around and still doing my full rotation. We did actually miss a little bit of percent here as well. So after the last boss, we had to run back to the starting area and just finish off some of the mobs. It was a little bit sketch, but we did finish the key with around just over a minute left. And we got 8 score out of this, taking us up to 3,224. Final key for this episode then, this is on the reset, so we're now on a fortified week. We've got entangling and bolstering as the affixes. Actually pretty scary affixes for this Murazon's Rise 24. Honestly, this key was super clean though. In the first area, you're going to want to focus all of your priority damage into the mini bosses, otherwise they're going to get bolstered. That is going to be very scary on the Maiden especially. Those ancient radiances are really going to hurt. It means that you have to split up a lot of the pulls up as well, otherwise you would probably just pull it all together and lust. Obviously not all 3 mini bosses, but maybe the Maiden and the big dude. And then moving on to the last boss, there was nothing really to note on this key. We do have 6 deaths, but they were just random deaths throughout the key. I think the Boomy died in the sand area. I think it's quite rough for Boomies in that area because they have their starfall rolling, so whenever more mobs are pulled in accidentally through just like the little smallies aggroing, then the Boomy's going to get aggro, and he did die to that, I know. We were pumping in this key onto the last boss with 300k overall, and the Boomy did manage to save me on one of these orbs. I claimed that I was doing the orbs, but the Boomy was aware that I wasn't stood anywhere near them, and he took one of them and saved me from causing us to wipe. Take out the last boss with a minute left, so I mean, Murazon's Rise doesn't actually feel that free. The timer is quite tight. We had 6 deaths, but it was still quite a clean key, I would say, and we only timed this with a minute left. I mean, maybe the Boomy could have done a bit more damage. If I had another person on like 300k with me, then it would have been a lot less tight. But Nevertheless, we do end up timing it, and we got 12 score out of this, taking us up to 3,236. That is where we're going to leave it for this episode. If you guys are enjoying this series, then let me know by leaving a like down below and also subscribing to your boy. As I said, these keys are a little bit behind. You'll notice that probably from the affixes, but we are slowly catching up. I have slowed down recently on the keys that I've been pushing as well, just feeling a little bit burnt out, but no doubt I'll get back to it. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.